To another exciting episode of my crazy editing techniques. This one I shot at a local car dealership. I shot with the Sony a7R III and the Canon 24 TSE tilt shift lens. Shot ISO 100 because it's all available light. I did no flash, no light painting, anything like that. So ISO 100 at f11. Excuse me, my base, what I call my base exposure, it's really what the camera thought was the closest to proper exposure, was 1.3 seconds. I did 2 more shots without moving. Same one, the underexposed one, which is going to be at least 2 stops under, I did at 1/5 of a second. ISO, of course, and the aperture staying the same. Then I overexposed one, and that was a 5-second exposure. So that's it. Of course, I'm on a tripod. Nothing changed. So let me just go back to this one and reset it. First thing I would do in this situation is to check my color balance. Excuse me again. And I did not run out there with the color card. So basically, part of it was time was of the essence. I had to move. But if you notice, if I go in here and pick something that should be white like this, it comes back with a color temperature that is way too cold. So this looks lifeless here. It looks dead. And again, if I click on the white vehicle, which is not also a good indicator, it comes up just a hair warmer, but still lifeless. So what I did was, and of course I'm going from memory of being at the location, was I said, you know, the tint is probably pretty close, maybe biased a hair too much to the red. And yes, I'm on a calibrated monitor, by the way. I calibrate this thing like every month, every 2 months, something like that. The computer tells me, and I calibrate it. And I suggest you do that. It certainly helps out. Okay, so I brought the color temperature down a little bit, and I'm just bringing it down in increments of 50 degrees Kelvin until I come up with something that looks pretty natural. I'm right here now at 3950 Kelvin, and that's pretty close to what was there. I can tweak it a little more later, but that's giving me a decent indication. Next thing I'm going to do from here, of course, pull down the highlight sum, and I can click on the option key, and it's going to show me what's blown out, what's not. And again, I'm using, when I expose, yes, my camera meter is telling me where I am, but also I use the zebra stripes on there, and it's under menu in the Sony. I have no idea if Canon and Nikon do that, but Sony mirrorless will give you the option to do a zebra, and I do that, and it comes from my old video production days, but even the A6000 had zebra. I set it to 95%, so it's just below clipping, and that will tell me if I'm clipping, and I get it as close to that as possible, and get my metering as close as possible. So anyway, yeah, these are just a little bit what Lightroom is telling me is clipped, but that's fine. I'm going to raise the shadows up some. Again, this foreground here is a little too bright, not worried about it, because I'm going to do something later. Go to sharpening. For whatever reason, my version of Lightroom has it defaulted to 40. For the tilt shift lens, which is brutally sharp, I just dropped it to 32. I'm going to click on masking. And again, what this is doing is it's sharpening things that need to be sharpened, things that don't have detail, which will show up here when I option click. They'll show up in black. Those won't get sharpened, and the more I slide this, the less things that are not detail will get sharpened. So I'd say probably I'm at 35, 34, that's fine. Noise reduction, this camera ISO 100, I'll do a number 6. It's low, it doesn't matter. It's not a noisy camera. Now with this lens, because it's a tilt shift lens, there are no profile corrections for it just because of the nature of the lens. I will do chromatic aberration to remove it, though the lens doesn't exhibit much anyway. Here, for the verticals, geometry or whatever, I'll click auto just to see what it does. It's not, that is off big time. Verticals are off big time, so Lightroom's not helping me here. Now, I do have these guides, and I'm off a little bit, but I'm more comfortable with doing this last in Photoshop. I'm just off a hair. I do use a bubble level, so I get it as close to level as possible in the field. That's that. Okay, so I've got my main image here done. I'm going to click on my underexposed and my overexposed. I'm going to synchronize them. Everything is checked, just like that. Synchronize them. Okay, let's go here to number 2. Now, what I've done here, all my color balance, everything's the same, that's fine. So what I'm exposing for here and what I'm trying to protect are the absolute highest of the highlights. So if I click here, even with the highlights down, I'm still showing these just clipped a hair. I don't believe they really have. I don't know why Lightroom's telling me so, but it says I don't have quite, or I'm still over. I'm really not. I'm actually going to bring up the exposure on this one just a hair. I'm at 4/10 of a stop, and if you see, nothing's really blown out. So we're going to keep that. Last image, the blown out highlight image, or the overexposed, and here I was probably 1.3 to 1.7 stops above what the camera told me was overexposed or properly exposed. And that I'm just trying to pull up some shadows. I'm really looking for detail in the darkest areas, and that's the only place this one will be used. Also, this gets a little murky, I've noticed, so I will add a little contrast. Take all 3, highlight them, go up here to Photo, edit in, open as layers in Photoshop, and we wait. Now these are 85 megabyte because I'm shooting uncompressed RAW here. So 85 megabytes per image at 3, and it's loading pretty quick. I'm on a solid state drive, internal in the computer, and the computer is an iMac Pro base model, but it's got some spunk to it. Okay. All 3 are in. I'm going to take the brightest one here, move it to the top, so I'm going from the darkest one to the brightest. It's just the way that I edit. And I could do what people suggest here is, let me bring it out. They like to highlight all these and go up here to auto align layers, and they hit auto and hit OK. I don't do that, because sometimes that comes back and it aligns them in ways they don't need to be aligned. A lot of times it's correct, but I find this way works for me better. So what I do is I zoom in, find something that's fixed that I know isn't going to move, which in this case I'll look here. And yes, light hitting it, if I was light painting or something, light hitting it from different directions will throw it off. But once you do this a while, you can get a good feel for if things are lined up or not. And this one is aligned, so I'm going to go here. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to click an option click on a layer mask. So now I've hidden that. Go up here to the brightest one. That didn't move either. So I am aligned. I mean, yes, this is showing up brighter, but I am definitely aligned here. Nothing is jumping. If I wasn't aligned, just to show you what it looked like, let me move it by a pixel or 2. That is what it would show up if it was not aligned. So let me go back here and move it down, back in alignment, which is where it originally was. Fortunately, hide it. So I've now hidden both layers. I'm going to create a luminosity mask, and these things are invaluable. So there are people you can buy presets from and all that, and they are useful, but I like to make them on my own. They're not very hard. To do that, you go from the layers to the channels, command click on the Mac, I don't know the PC, on RGB. Going to come down here, going to create a new mask out of that, and it shows up as Alpha 1. And the marching ants are telling me it is an active mask. Deselect that. What I'm going to do then, since I deselected it, is I'm going to modify it, because what I want to do is I want the highest, brightest highlights to show up as white. I want everything else to come in darker. So I'm trying to make more contrast out of it. So I'm going to Command M for modify. It brings up this curves adjustment, which is just adjusting the mask. As you see, I can bring up the highlighted section and create more contrast by going down here, dropping the shadows. So what I'm trying to do again is to protect the brightest parts. I don't want to blow those out. I want to keep as much detail as I can. Everything else I'm going to bring back in another way. Click OK. Command click on that mask to activate it. Come back up here, click on the RGB or whatever up at the top. That highlights that, brings it back up. Go back to layers. Click on our middle layer, which is what our bright should be. And you don't want to click here. You'll paint on your actual image. You want to click and paint on the mask. Over here, this is going to show your paints. They need to be either white and black. They can be something else, and if they, for whatever reason, show up, Hit D to default and it'll take you back to your colors. Now you can also click on the arrow here to change those colors back and forth, or you can click X. I'm going to click brush here. So I've got a paintbrush. I am at 0% hardness. The brush size you can change here with your brackets on the keyboard, larger or smaller. Good to go. Now I've got my highlights, my whites and my brightest highlights. They're highlighted, everything else is not. I don't want to work on those, I want to protect those. So I'm going to go Command-I to invert the mask. So now those highlights are protected, nothing will show through, but I've inverted, so I'm working on my darker areas. I'm going to also Shift F6. That's going to feather the selection by 1 pixel, make it a little smoother, just a touch. I'm going to go in here and start painting. My flow is at 4%. For something like this, 8 or 9 works. For exteriors, don't ask me why, it just works for me. I'm on black, so I need to switch to white. Just start painting in the brighter exposure. And yes, I'm going to bleed into the sky, and actually I want to bring some of that bright sky, but not much. And I'll fix that, and I'll show you how to fix that. So just come across here and start painting. Also, if you don't want to see the marching ants, Command-H hides the mask, but you're still using the mask. So I'm just bringing up the exposure in those darker areas. I can come in here closer, work this, just to bring things up. Not bad. And yes, it is overflowing a little bit on the sky. I'm okay with that. In fact, I want a little bit of that sky. So I'm going to come down here and bring this down about 3%. Bring my brush up nice and wide. And just paint over some of that sky. I want some of that blue sky, that nice twilight that I love. And I'm going to come here and I'm going to just open that up a little bit. Now, it's good enough, but I want to bring in something a little bit brighter for some spots. So I click up on this layer here, but do not click on the actual image. You click on the mask. You make sure you're on the mask. I'm at 3%. That's fine for my flow. I'm going to come in here and paint in some of these darker shadows. Just something I want to bring out. Still working in the mask. And I'm going to do this relatively quick. I'm trying to explain things, but the things I'd want to go, I do, and I would take a little more time, but for this tutorial, I want to go a little bit faster so I don't bore y'all. Bring up the logo. By the way, this building is absolutely gorgeous. Come in here, bring this up a little bit. So what you're doing is you're faux light painting. So I could have gone in there with the flash or with the hot light, taken multiple layers, and people have been on shoots with me where I've done that in the past. Pop certain things and move on. I think my record is something like 35 or 37 layers of light painting. But this works just fine too. Again, I was under time constraint, and also the facility, although they were closed at this point, I did not bring the lights in. When I did the interiors, I did not bring flash. Everything was all ambient, so I just stayed with that. So bring things up to taste. We'll leave it at this for now. Okay, I'm going to deselect the mask. I'm going to go back down to my darkest layer, this guy right here. Okay, and sometimes when I work this way, some things get just a little, like you can see right here in this area. The transition is just a little, I want to say stair-stepped. It just goes from dark to light a little unnaturally. There's a way you can fix that. So I'm going to create a curves layer just above this layer. You don't need to clip it because it's going to work everything under it. There's only one layer under it. I'm going to come here to the mid-high and just bring it up a little bit. A little bit, just like that. Now my transition is much, much more natural. I'm looking around here to see if I've got any halos around the lights that don't look natural. So far, everything looks good. That's a good level. But I boosted my whites. So I'm going to come back to the channels, click on my mask, the original mask that I created, come back to my curves mask. I'm not going to invert it. I want to work on just the whites. I'm going to Shift F6 To feather that, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, bring my brush color to black, so I'm actually taking away from the mask. I'll leave the marching ants on. So I'm taking away just the brightest of the bright. I'm doing this at 3%, so it's very, very minimal. And again, just to show you what it's doing in the mask, if I option click on the mask and I'll hide the marching ants, it'll show you what's being painted in. So literally just the brightest of the brights and a hair of that. So it almost looks counterintuitive. I guess if I pushed it too far it would be, but it's not. So this is without the curve, and that's with, and you especially see it in the cans down here hitting the wall. That's much more natural. And if I've gone too far, like this one, I probably went a hair too far. I just switch that to white and undo what I did. Makes the transition a little better. Good, done that. Next up, deselect the mask. I'm going to create a new layer from all these layers, so faux flattening, if you will, so that I can work non-destructively. Command Option Shift E, that creates a whole new layer. What I'm going to do at this point is work on cleanup. You see up here in the corner, sensor dust. And I use the blower all the time to blow off when I switch lenses out. It's a mirrorless camera. This is just a fact of life, and we get rid of that pretty easily in Photoshop. You can in Lightroom too. I actually like doing it in Photoshop better. I'm going to create, just so I can see this better, I'm going to create a new curves layer above this layer here. I'm going to boost this up, the brights, just to kind of work the contrast so these things stick out a little bit more. And this you do till it works. When you start to see these things, you've done it right. I'm going to go back to the layer. I'm going to find my spot healer, which is J. All you have to do is press the letter J on your keyboard. It's going to show you sensor dust. Here you go. Make your circle, and you do this with the brackets on the keyboard. You make that a little bit bigger than what you want to remove. Click it, it's gone. This one here, and I've used the blower on this, I don't know how many times it's there, and eventually, you know, I'll get it professionally cleaned, but for now, you're gone. There was another one I saw down here, boom, you're gone. Here, that looks like a bird or a plane or something in the background way far back, I don't want it. Click, you're out. I've got a little bit of one down here, sensor dust. Boom, you're out. Now, you could spend, and again, for a commercial shoot, I would spend a lot of time, I mean, going through this with a fine-tooth comb, but this isn't bad, actually. There's one right there. Okay, not bad. Not bad at all. We'll go with this for now. The next thing I'm going to do is get rid of that curves layer. I'm going to do more cleanup because I've got to get rid of stuff now. In real estate, of course, you have to leave things like sprinklers. If there was a fire alarm or security camera in the house or whatever, if there was a smudge on the wall, there's a spider web there. The spider web I could get rid of in real estate too. But you know, I don't know, anything. In a commercial, you can get rid of it. In a residential real estate, you really can't. So I'm going to create a new layer. This allows me to work non-destructively. Back here with my special spot healer, I'm just going to go like this over the sprinklers. And if you accidentally hit P like I did, just go back to J. P brings up the pen tool. I'm not going to do this entirely for this because it would take far too long, just to give you an idea of what you do. Here's the speaker. I actually left these in. It's a speaker, but you can take them out. That's to taste. Just pull them out, and if there's a problem, I'll show you how to fix it. Again, going down here, sprinklers. Now, why does it take so long to do stuff like this? Because there are these little sprinkler heads all over, inside and out. So I was pulling them inside and out. This little guy, I don't know what it is, pulled it out too. And if he didn't come out right, boom, here. This is a spider web, sprinkler head. So you're getting all this out. There's a spider web back here. Let's get that out. Spot healer does a really good job. Sometimes when it's a little clunky like here. Okay, so I'm going to undo that. We're going to go here and fix that. Use the clone stamp tool on that one. With this, I like to blend in, so I'm going to bring my clone stamp down about 23%. Highlight here. When you highlight, all I'm doing is option clicking where I want to sample, bringing it over here. I'm going to line this up so the building continues to line up correctly, and just Start working my way around it and just get this to blend, because I'm using a very low flow. I'll go even lower here. I'm just blending in little parts just to make this go more seamless. Okay, I have a problem here. Problem here is easily fixed. Clone stamp tool should do that for me too. Clone stamp. I'm going to go here. I have this lined up as clone source. If you don't have it there, you can go to Window. You can click on clone source. It'll pop up. I'm going to actually sample and reverse my clone. That you do here. Click. I'm going to click the back end of this light. Make sure I'm at full flow. Back into the light here. Just replace it there. It really didn't give me much to work with, but you'll never know. That is done. And you're going to say, but wait, there's more. There is more. Go back here to layers. I reverted my clone source back to where it was. Again, I don't want this to get too boring. So you see what we're doing, what I'm doing here. Fix that. We go back to normal size. You never know what happened. Now, another thing I want to do. So let's assume I've gotten all these sprinkler heads out. We got a security camera here. Let's go back to our spot eraser, our spot healer, security camera there. And I'm back on the layer for fixing things. That gets rid of it pretty well. If it didn't, I would then go to my clone stamp, probably bring it down to like 30%, sample a different area here with the rocks, and just kind of match things up just to get it to look a little more seamless. Here, fire alarm. Let's try this. And again, I don't do this in residential real estate. I do this for commercial work. Not bad. It's a little clunky there. Go back to my clone stamp by hitting S. Find some of these guys. My flow is 30% still, so I'm going to sample some other bricks. Come in here and just clean that up. So it looks like it's supposed to be there. Okay, good enough for this tutorial. You know where I'm going with this, and yes, I would spend more time on it. This downspout here, easy fix. Goodbye. This on the floor, I don't know what it is, but I would remove it. This here I would remove too. And you go, wait. That was a spot healer, not working for me good enough. Spot healer I probably would use, and this is just a sprinkler head. I would go down to here, go back to a clone stamp, pick something like this, sample just that so I'm getting just the color. Sample from either side. There you go. Clone stamp this at 30%. Let's bring it up because I don't feel like switching. Clone stamp that out. This thing's a pain in the ass. I'll show you how to clone stamp that out real quick. And again, I don't want you to be bored. All I'm doing is sampling here, moving straight down the line, making sure my lines are lined up. It's a pain in the ass, but it's not that hard to fix. Go back here and just clean up this edge. Back here, clean the edge up even more. And go even tighter. Just to get that there. Boom, pull out, you're fixed. I have these spouts on the side here. Those are not hard to fix, but just for this tutorial. Now we've also got stuff inside, and I don't want to forget about that. So these things are an easy fix. This is just light reflections. Could even get rid of this because it's a royal pain and it looks kind of nasty there. Go in and chop this stuff out. Okay, that's looking a little dicey there. We'll fix it. Clone stamp here. Make this a little larger so I'm sampling over here. Clone stamping here. Okay. Just making sure I'm aligned properly. That maybe a hair off, but you get the drift for the tutorial. Again, line up. Okay. That one may be an opacity issue. I usually can fix these if I get a little bit bigger. Let's go to here. That's going to be closer in color. Too far. Okay. This is interesting because I'm not liking it. So, one thing I can do, click a new layer. This is a different type of cleanup. I'm going to use my polygonal lasso tool. This is going to just restrict or constrain where I work. F6, I'm going to feather that. Let's see. I think I can do this with, again, clone stamp. I'm at 22%. Let's go down here and pick that up and just see if I can smooth this out. So I want to keep some of the shadow up. At the same time, I don't want it to be all right. That's one way to smooth it out. Let's hide that so that, because there is a shadow there, so that's before, that's after. All right. There's more cleanup to do in there, but I'm not going to bore you with it. What I would do is continue working in here, go J, get the spot healer. I'd get this guy up, deselect the mask, get this guy, get that guy there. I'm not going to worry about that for the time being. See, there are more sprinklers up here. All that would come out. We're not going to do that now because I don't want this to be a 3-hour video. Let's go back here. So assuming I've done do cleanup, I'm going to do cleanup in the parking lot too. Okay, same thing. I would be working a lot of this in the parking lot. And it's pretty simple. And this is all with the spot healer. That I can probably do with clone stamp. Just come here, drag over there. So I sampled, putting this together like this, rebuilding the curb. Go back to J, spot healer, pull this out, clean that out, clean more stuff out. Literally, you can spend hours cleaning out, but we don't have hours. Again, over here, what do we have? This one's interesting. This is the Handicapped Signs, and yes, those can be pulled out. I'll do a new layer. Only reason I'm doing a new layer is just for my own non-destructiveness. This is going to be pretty simple to start with. That didn't do a half bad job. We're going to do another one. Another one. That's not terrible. And you say you screwed it up, sort of. All right, let's go to 100%. We're back to clone stamp. I'm going to grab that and grab this and say it's too, you know what I'm going to do? Let's see. New layer. You'll see why. Again, I'm going to grab that, come down here. We're a little brighter than we need to be, but that's okay. I'll fix that. Come up here, rebuild the line. Ooh, get back here. Here, I gotta fix a line. Let's go to here. Nope. Trying to find one that'll work. Okay, and you say that's all screwed up. No, it's not. This is a great place to show you curves layer. I'm going to go to curves. I'm going to clip it to this layer so it only affects this layer. Option, get between the two, click down. Now, I can actually pull down here. What I want to do, this is going to get too dark. I'm going to pull down the brightest one so that that matches up. So this one now matches up. This is too dark. That's okay. This is a mask. Go back to my brush. Click here to reverse the color to black. I'm at 3% opacity. So what I'm going to do is just brush out that curve to bring this back to the level it should be. And you don't know it was there. Okay, I can do the same thing here with this, but again, for time, and I'm being kind of sloppy with this because this video is getting long. That's how you clean all that stuff up. Again, I would be doing more cleanup in the parking lot and whatnot, but I want to get to color correction here. Okay, color correction, hue saturation layer. This is not clipped, so this is going to affect everything. Go to blend mode of color. To me, this is just a hair too orange. It's not bad. I got closer to it than I thought in Lightroom, so I was able to get that close enough anyway. So I go here to my color picker, click on the color. It's obviously in the yellow group. I can pull it back. If I click and drag, it pulls everything back either way or pulls it up, but it shows you what it's sampled here. I want to drag it back just a little bit, and at the same time I'm going to go up here to the hue. I'm going to change the hue and just cool it off a little bit so it's biased a little less orange and kind of more towards the greenish color, just a little bit. And I can click on and off and show you the subtle change. Now it's also affecting down in here. I don't need it to affect that much. The good news is it's a mask, so I'm going to invert the mask. I'm going to paint in with the brush tool, change that to white, give this about 10% is fine. I really want to affect the orange up here and less inside, which the inside was a little bit more yellow than orange. But I just want to clean this up a little bit. Again, do it till it's to taste. Also in here, you see that's an exit sign. That's easy to pull out. There's another camera there. That's easy to pull out. But these are things that would turn this into a 2-hour video. Also, I've got some green down here. There was some lighting in the parking lot. I guess mercury vapor or whatever. This biased a little green. There's a little bit of green splash here or aqua splash. I can get rid of that. The same way, hue saturation. Change the blend mode to color. Click down here on the color picker. It tells me that's green. Good. I'll do it again. That actually pulled the yellow. I don't want to do that. I'm going to undo it. Blues. It did pull some blue out, pulled the blue out there. No problem. I'll fix that. Here, that may be a little more aqua. And I can go to the cyan. I can go here, just test out. Yeah, it's pulling out there. So I've got those pulled down, but I'm going to invert the mask. I'm going to, with the pen tool, do another constrainment because I don't want the blue coming out. So just roughly make sure I'm not pulling sky out. And this building is getting some of the green and the blue on it that I don't want. Just go all the way around. Yep. Back to Photoshop. Go all the way around. Close it, feather it by 1, use the brush. I'm at 10%. I'm going to brush out these greens down here and these blues down here. Okay, I'm going to brush out greens and blues up here. These actually were kind of green, so I'm going to leave that to some degree. Just brush that out. And again, I'm quicker about this than I would normally be to deliver for a client if I was. Another thing I would do, okay, I'm just seeing now, I don't like that, it sticks out. So we're going to get another layer, we're going to clean that up. J, I'm going to spot heal that thing away. And it's gone. That was just distracting. And again, then I see more stuff I could clean up in the parking lot. All right, almost done. For this again, I'm going to add a little more contrast to this with the curves layer. I'm going to brighten it just a little bit. Come down here. The darker tones, I'm going to leave them. I'm not darkening them, I'm just not letting them get brighter. And again, to protect my whites, I'm going to come here to Channels, create another mask. This is another Luminosity Mask. deselect the mask, modify it, again because I'm trying to protect the highlights. And there you go. So what I've done is I've got the whites and the lightest boosted up here, everything else I'm dropping. Click OK, activate it by clicking command click, go back here, click RGB layer, deselect that guy, go here. Now I'm on my curves layer, so what I'm trying to do is negate some of that stuff. So I need to be in black. I need to be in brush. I'm at 10%, that's fine. I'm just going to brush out some of the brightest parts. And if you're not sure what you're brushing out, you can Apple hide, click on the mask, option click, and it'll show you what you're dropping out. So this is protecting just the brightest of the brights. Deselect that, click here, this shows you before and after. It's subtle, but it works. Now, this step, what I would do is, if I say I'm done, I'm going to flatten the image. Actually, what I would really do here is I would save this. I would do a save as, change that to a large document format, give it a title. It will save all my layers and everything, all my work, in case I have to go back to it. But assuming I've saved it, then I'm going to go down here, flatten the image. I'm going to bring out my guides from the side here. So what this is going to tell me is how off my verticals are. Remember, I did not do any correction in Lightroom because Lightroom didn't do a good job this time. I was off just a hair. This tells you I'm barely off. Okay. All. Go to transform here under edit, transform, skew. I'm going to just do a little bit, probably 1 or 2 degrees. Sorry. 2 will get it there. This is probably off just a hair the same way. Same thing. Double click. Go back here. Deselect it. Click. Actually, I can just close it. Hit save. It's going to go back into Lightroom. Then in Lightroom, I'm going to do a few more tweaks. I'm going to brighten it a little bit if it needs it. Add a little more contrast. Check my highlights to make sure that everything's okay. Bring up the shadows just a hair. Again, check the whites. Play with the blacks a little bit. This is all to taste. Clarity. Dehaze it a little bit. Vibrance. So I brought up the vibrance of the saturation just a little bit also. Here's another thing. So in tone curve, which people don't normally mess with, this will work. Sometimes it adds a little something. I'm bringing up just a little bit in the dark section. You can see where that's coming in just a little bit. I do want to crop this some because I've got a little extra space I don't need. Just a little bit that I don't need in here. Okay, so crop this out, get part of the parking lot out. I love the sky, it stays. Do a vignette, just a hair. Check it because it's probably could go up a little bit more in brightness. Again, this is just tweak it. Do F for full screen. Not bad for quick, but yes, all that would come out. So for a quote-unquote real client shot and not just something I'm doing for tutorial here, all that would come out. I would get rid of these sprinkler heads here, get rid of the camera, probably get rid of this highway sign there, get rid of the handicapped sign, the other one, and these guys here, they're little downspouts, fix that little, I mean, that's normal. There's nothing wrong with it. They're just distracting. Get rid of these little gaps, expansion joints in the concrete there, pick up a couple more things here, get a couple reflections off the door, and after that, and probably 2 hours later, send it to client. So that's it. Hopefully this will show you how OCD I can get in Photoshop, and I certainly appreciate all the feedback when it comes in. Let me know what I can do for you. Take care. Have a good one.